but I'll have to hit the button here. So this is kind of informal. Just wanted to talk to you about the Trees Mississippi Assistance Program, which is why we're here today. And we appreciate y'all coming out. Up front, I want to say that the funding for this program has come through the USDA Forest Service via an urban and community forestry grant that is administered in Mississippi by the Mississippi Forestry Commission. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work that's brought us here today. So we just want to acknowledge those folks. My name is Misty Booth. I'm the community forester with the Green Infrastructure Center. We're a nonprofit based out of Virginia. But I am part of the Mississippi staff. When you registered, you met the rest of our staff that are here today. Matt Lee is headquartered in Virginia, and then Caroline Ingram is an urban planner who's part of the Mississippi team. So 3 of us are here with you today, but there is also a whole slew of people at headquarters and throughout the eastern United States. We're working in several different states. We've got a team of landscape architects, arborists, urban foresters. Our GIS team is really on display today with all the maps. So there are a lot of people working on behalf of Natchez that are not able to be here in person, but they love working for you guys. So what we do is, as a nonprofit, is we help communities assess their natural assets, and through that we can integrate that into our gray infrastructure and have it all working together very intentionally. And we do that with mapping and modeling, which are engaging with a lot of that data, and then creating strategies, which we'll talk about a little bit more, but there's a lot of writing, teaching, and training that goes into our work. So why trees? Why are trees important? You know, a lot of times in urban spaces we think of trees as ornaments, just beautification. We hear that word a lot. And they are pretty, and they do create a sense of place and aesthetic. But they're doing a lot more work. If you can be very intentional about the right trees in the right place, and they get on up into mature size, they provide a lot of services, like environmental services, like clean water, clean air, controlling erosion. A big one in urban spaces is mitigating stormwater runoff. You know, think about it, if we didn't have all those trees taking up that water, how much more flooding issues we would have and things like that. They're also contributing to social services. You know, they promote recreation. We know this. I usually make some joke about it being hot in August in Mississippi, but apparently it's hot in February in Mississippi. But we all know that, you know, if that walking path is out there in the sun, that we're probably not going to get out there and recreate as much. But if it were shaded, we'd be more likely to do that. And there's just it's just a snowball effect as far as human health and the benefits that trees help contribute to. There's a lot of research about children who have access to quality green space and how they do so much better on test scores. So a lot of social services and even human health services, and then economic services. This is what trees really can contribute to the economic prosperity of a community. They increase property values, which increases tax revenues. They reduce energy burdens. So if you have that shade over your home, you're not paying as much for energy bills, and that lowers the stress on our utility systems. Support vibrant business districts. I mean, you think about your business districts, if they didn't have trees, how much different they would look. There's research that says, you know, people will actually spend more time shopping when their car is parked in the shade. And spend more money, too, in quality business districts. So it promotes tourism. That's a big one in Natchez. Tourism is really important to your economy here. And then, again, just providing that aesthetic and sense of space. But, you know, trees are good, but sometimes we fail to mention that there's conflicts with trees. You know, and a lot of times that comes down to they weren't intentionally managed or maintained, and they start creating conflicts. Everybody knows, you know, about buckling sidewalks or problems with roots interfering with water lines or whatever. But that usually comes down to a lack of management. So that's why we've really spent a lot of time on the planning, so we don't just go out willy-nilly planting trees. It's very intentional and well planned of how you do it, so you get to optimize those benefits we were just talking about. So you know, you can mitigate disservices in tree canopy loss with the management and maintenance and assessing risk and minimizing those conflicts. being more resilient with your tree canopy for storm preparedness and those types of things. So that's why the management and the maintenance is very important. So that brings us to the Tree Mississippi Assistance Program. It is a comprehensive technical assistance program. This is not a once and done where we come in and write a management plan and stick it on a shelf and never use it. We're here with the community for 2+ years to try to move the needle and actually implement some of the things we're planning to do. It promotes meaningful involvement. There was 6 communities in Mississippi that 23 competed, 6 were competitively selected. So Natchez is one of 6 communities that were selected for participation in this program. And we're supporting urban forestry planning and planting again. So it's very comprehensive from beginning to end. There's a stepwise process, it builds on itself. And so we are currently in phase 2, which is the planning phase. We've been meeting with the city, a cross section of departments within the city, and then also volunteers and community partners to plan. That's leading into a neighborhood scale implementation phase. So right now the maps you're seeing are community wide for the whole city. But the feedback that you're giving today will help inform where we go and what we do from here on a more granular level. So there's just a visual on, like I said, it's a stepwise process. We've had monthly workshops and each one is built on the last. So we're at the open house today. And so the current conditions of Natchez tree canopy, you have 56% tree canopy, which is not too bad. That's not too shabby. But people start saying, well, how does that compare with other communities? And the most important thing is, how do you compare with yourself? What does your tree canopy look like now as compared to 10 years ago? What will it look like 10 to 15 years from now? And even though you have a pretty good tree canopy, it also comes down to how is it distributed? Do you have gaps in canopy? And that's where the management comes in. So your potential tree canopy is 73%. If you went out there, we've got this map over here that shows the potential planting area. If you were to go out there and plant everywhere you could max it out at 73%. You don't want to plant everywhere you could. You got to have open space for gardens and baseball fields and everything else. But that gives you some bookends as far as management, what you have and what you could have. So this is an example of if you planted every potential space, how many trees you could plant. It's 13% of the landscape, or a little over 1,200 trees if you planted everything. The goal here is the Tree Canopy Advisory Committee that we've been meeting with set the goal of maintaining the 56% tree canopy, which means no net loss. We want to maintain what we have. We don't want to lose anything. But what you have to understand is you're going to naturally lose trees to storms, to development, they just age out. So to maintain your tree canopy, it means you do have to be planting to at least keep that no net loss. So we're talking about that goal being 56% over the next 10 years. So you'd have to plant 12,000 trees on public and private property just to maintain the tree canopy you have now. And that's a good point, is it's not just on the city. You can see this map over here, that one by that gentleman sitting there in the yellow shirt. That map right there shows private, public, and the blue is private property. So you can see how much of the city is private property. So it's really, it has to be a public-private initiative for it to work. So the Tree Canopy Advisory Committee has formulated about 15 strategies of how to achieve that objective, and they break down into about 5 categories over there. It comes down to increasing capacity with things like staff, funding, those sorts of things. Promoting tree protection standards, so a municipal tree care ordinance, looking at your land development code, your practices, what helps you sustain tree canopy. Integrating urban forest management planning. A lot of times trees are piecemealed with the management, but you can have an urban forest management plan, but unless it's really integrated with like your stormwater management, your comprehensive plan, all of those things, it's not as sustainable and wide-reaching. Utilizing informed tree planting, that's the fun one. We're going to plant some trees, but we want to be informed with that tree planting. And then broadening community engagement. Again, so much of it's on private property, you have to have the community at large involved. This is an example of one way you can prioritize where you go. This, if you were to look at surface heat and low income, you can get very granular on the map and say, you know, here's our really hot areas where there's a lot of need. You know, maybe that's where we want to go. So it'll all be very data-driven decisions, and part of the community engagement and your participation today helps formulate that data and where we ultimately will go and what we'll do. And then the deliverables that'll come out of this, we've gone through much of this, so the city is getting a lot of this currently. The maps, we've done a code and ordinance review, ecosystem services assessment, and we're actively prioritizing our strategies, and they will ultimately have a strategic tree canopy plan that gets all of this summarized up. And then when we get to the neighborhood level, there'll be deliverables there too. So if you want to be involved going forward, make sure you get that QR code out there and get signed up. We're going to need a committee. Once we know the neighborhoods we're working in, we'll be forming a committee there and doing planting projects and have maintenance plans associated with all of that. So I know I threw a lot at you in a very quick amount of time, and I know you're standing, and if you're like me, you're shifting from one foot to the other. So, but I will open it up for questions if anybody has questions. Yes, ma'am.
When are you going to be planting these trees?
We will be planting the bulk of these trees next planting season. So you plant trees in the winter, so you're pretty much, or late fall to winter. So I would say mid-November to March 1 of 2025 to into 2026. So we have, once we get our strategies prioritized and we know where we're going, we'll have this summer and early fall to do some design work and engage the community with that second committee. And then the planting, the fun work actually really starts when it starts cooling off, late fall. Good question.
Are you the contact to get more information or anything like that?
I can tell you, yes, I am available and can be contacted. Ryan Porter is a local contact with Parks and Rec. But if you did not get this card on the way in, it says paid and volunteer opportunities and get involved. Get this card on the way out if you didn't get it. And there's a QR code, and it takes you to just a real simple survey where you can put your name and contact information in and say, I want to be more involved as things go forward. So that's a great way to get on the list and make sure you're hearing the news as we move forward. Great question. Are there any other questions?
Is city and planning engaged now with these projects? I mean, they're getting ready to strip out a whole area, put in a strip mall, you know, on one of the areas you just showed. And how do you mitigate that to force developers to include, you know, replant and whatnot?
Your first question, is the city involved? Yes. This Tree Canopy Advisory Committee is, it's got the city staff on it from Parks and Rec, Public Works, Community Development, Planning. You know, we've got several departments on that committee. We also have community stakeholders like master gardeners and some other volunteers. So we try to get a diverse committee to do this planning phase. And there have been discussions about those types of challenges. And that really comes down to, you know, we really talked about that a lot in our code and ordinance audit that we did for the city. You're always going to have development. You have to have development to feed the coffers of the city, right? But you can have smart development, and that really comes down to having a tree care ordinance, buffing up, you know, building up your land development code so that can be smart development. So when spaces are developed, you can influence as a city how that is done. So there are opportunities to get some of that into the code of ordinances and just the practices of the city. So that's what the planning is all about. Because you can go out and plant a lot of trees, but if you don't have that sustainable system to sustain that canopy, then you're getting the cart before the horse, really. Mm-hmm.
Who is doing the planting of the trees? I heard her ask you, like...
Who will actually be planting? That's why the community engagement is so important. So, yeah. We will be relying on volunteers to be engaged. And that's why that second committee is really important, because the city, the planting projects that we do will be on public property. The only way we're really engaging private property is through giveaways, like the trees you're getting today. Those can be planted on private property. But the projects that we do are going to be on public property. So the city may give the guardrails on that, like based on the data, we may say, well, we're going to go into this neighborhood, into this park. So we've got our bumpers on, well, this is what we're going to do. We've got the city's blessing. But we'll have that second committee that's the residents in that neighborhood, the people who use that space, to tell us how they use that space and how they would like to see it. So the details of what it looks like, the species that are selected, where they go. We'll be working on the design and all of that with the people that are right there living, working, playing in that space and using it. So it's very important that we engage the folks that, you know, they need ownership in that space. Whoever ends up wherever we end up going, you know, you want to make sure you're engaging that community there and have ownership in it. And there's a lot of ownership in a tree when you're the one that planted it. And so we will be planting smaller trees, because two things: smaller trees establish better, and volunteers can handle smaller trees much better than your big 30-gallon ball and burlap. You know, we're not going to come out there with a forklift. It's going to be 7 15-gallon trees. So the care is very important as well. We'll have kind of 10 to 15-minute trainings, you know, as part of all of that, to say, here's how you properly plant a tree. Here's how you properly mulch a tree. Here's how you properly care for a tree. So you're giving that tree the best chance for survival, and, you know, with lawnmowers and weed eaters and all of that. Mulch can be your friend on that, and if you're doing it properly. And then you're increasing the capacity of that volunteer base to help with that going forward. So, good questions. Any others?
You have a question on Facebook Live.
Okay.
How is stormwater management linked to tree plants?
Okay. So a lot of times what we do with stormwater management is we take out all the vegetation and we engineer the solutions, right? With riprap or concrete, or just engineered solutions for stormwater. So if you can be intentional about your tree planting and have riparian zones that have trees, you've got the root system of those trees taking up that water. So it really slows water down. You've got canopy. But when water comes down, if you've got that canopy of that tree intercepting that water, it slows it down. It's taking up water in the roots. So it is lessening the impact of your engineered stormwater solutions. It's slowing the water down going into that stormwater uptake. So that's how it's, in simple terms, that's how it's integrated. So the two can work together. The trees are helping you with the impacts on your gray infrastructure. Your green infrastructure is helping your gray infrastructure. They're working together. And so if you have that green infrastructure working for you, you're not having to replace that gray infrastructure as much. The burden on the gray infrastructure is not as much if you're doing it right. Yeah. Good question. It's fun to hear that we've got Facebook folks listening and interacting. Any other questions? All right, well, I'm going to let you get back to it and engage with the maps here. If you are on Facebook and you're not here, get here. We're here till noon, and we'd love everybody to come and give some feedback. Thank y'all so much. And yet thank you. Fill out that QR code. I do. I have extra wood. Yeah, if you know somebody that wasn't able to be here, you can take them one of these, and you know. Let me make sure I don't have a hot mic. Let me get this guy.